Hi. So, thanks for stopping by. My name's Nick,
I'm Karen.
and today we're going to be talking about thriving in difficult times.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly, a difficult time for us at the moment because you look at any newspaper and all the stories seem to be doom and gloom. That's what we thought, didn't we?
Absolutely. I mean, the sort of the news bias, the impression you get, and there's a lot of really bad stuff happening out there in the world.
Yeah.
But it's how do you sort of maintain your sense of well-being and happiness in such, let's face it, what are difficult times?
Absolutely.
So yes, difficult times. I think we can all agree that right now is difficult. We've got lots of worrying news going on in the world, wars, all sorts of things. And for many individuals at a personal level, that could be they're financially struggling. There's definitely a housing crisis going on. Fuel prices again, food supply. My goodness, that list is quite long, isn't it?
Climate,
Not forgetting climate change.
NHS waiting lists,
Yeah.
education in turmoil, special needs education in turmoil.
So,
Yeah, there's-
what awful times we're in, or are we? So that's what we're going to talk about now.
Yeah, I think what we're going to talk about is how to flourish in these difficult times. And even, when celebrity status, that does give something to us to aspire to, but it's unrealistic. And even when you look at the lives of celebrities, actually, they're not thriving. They've often got more mental health crises. I read somewhere that there's more divorced celebrities. They're not leading the perfect life. We're all on this journey together. So what does to thrive mean? When I looked it up, it means to be happy,
Yeah.
to be resilient, and to have the ability to grow. And even in these difficult times, I think we can do that and find happiness.
I think that's probably the key, isn't it? How does one get through difficult times, and how do you thrive
Yeah.
during maybe one of the more sort of difficult eras of history?
Yeah. And I think we've talked in previous vlogs about differentiating between what you can control and letting go of the things that you can't, and not stressing about those and doing what you can towards them, but focus on what you can do. And I found this amazing study, actually. Some researchers have done a mega study on what makes adults, children, and athletes happy and able to thrive. And what they found is there's two basic things. One is the individual's personal characteristics, and the second is their environment. And before you panic and think, oh no, I haven't got any of those things that you're going to mention, actually, we can all change and work towards developing our personalities, and we all have control over some of our environmental things. So there is hope for all of us. I'm going to talk through some of those things.
Okay, so it's going to be really interesting sort of seeing what we can actually sort of do during a period like this. How can we do it? How can we thrive?
Yeah, so one of those is actually optimism. So being able to, even in these negative times, find some sort of little seed of hope that can grow, and we all know acorns grow into massive trees. So it's having that sense of optimism that is actually something one can learn. You can catch yourself having negative thoughts and challenge them. And I think the other positive thing that came out of this study was that with optimism, it's very energizing. So if we're talking about moving and making small incremental changes to thrive, actually having that energy is really important. And when we blame people and say, it's their fault, they've done that, the government's rubbish, and this is rubbish, and how am I expected to do anything?
Yeah.
That is a very draining thought. And blame basically anchors you in that moment and disables any change to happen, because you can get so angry that you don't actually act. So I think one of the important things with optimism is when obviously things are going to happen to us that we feel are terrible and are bad, but just stopping for a moment, recognizing those thoughts, naming them for what they are, because they are thoughts in our head. Maybe taking a break, maybe doing something, going for a walk, baking a cake, just to create a mental space between them. Nick?
Yeah, I think it's what you're already talking about here is challenging that sense of powerlessness, because I think that's it's so easy for disenfranchised that you have no voice, you have no influence on these things. So I think anything that we can do to actually challenge those assumptions, because that's what they are in a way, is really, really good for our mental health.
Because we don't necessarily have control over things that happen to us. Oh, nice church bell going.
Oh, but if you haven't guessed, we're in Oxford, by the way, so behind us the Radcliffe camera.
But we do have we do have control over how we react to things. And it's about, I think, being mindful of those feelings, recognizing them, naming them, giving ourselves space, and then intentionally choosing how we're going to tackle that. So finding that spark, that little seed of what we can develop, what we can change, and that will motivate us and keep us going. And that's critical for human beings to thrive. And another thing was about resilience. So, if something goes wrong, having a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, not giving up. Just keep looking for those seeds of hope and going towards what you want.
Yeah, I think that's really true. It's never going to be a linear journey where you just sort of start at the beginning and everything's just magically fine. That's not how life works. We all know that.
Yeah.
So it's really just having strategies in place and ways of checking in with yourself, actually, because, for example, challenging a negative thought sounds easy, doesn't it? But actually, it's about catching yourself in the moment. And if not catching yourself in the moment, maybe that moment at the end of the day where you reflect on what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and just a chance to take a step back. Or maybe it's a conversation with friends, but we'll come to all of these sort of strategies.
And you love your journaling, don't you?
Well, yeah, journaling, you've heard me talk about this before. It's such a powerful device for mental health, apart from anything, because it gives you that sort of mental space to back away, get some distance, get those thoughts down on the page, good and bad, and reflect on them.
Yeah.
That's a really healthy thing to do.
So developing optimism is key. A second thing was that as human beings, it's almost in our DNA that we like a challenge. It's fantastic to sit on the sofa and relax, but actually we can only do that for so long because we love that dopamine hit of when we've achieved something. And I think children are born very curious. Being a teacher, I particularly noticed that and a parent, they're always asking questions. They're always asking, how does that work? Why is that? And we're born with that sense of curiosity. It's part of what keeps us alive as well. It's one of our survival strategies. So I think knowing what you're aiming for, what lights you up, is also really, really important. So I think it's asking yourself, what do you want to do? What is going to motivate you? What's going to give you that sense of hope? Is it a community garden? Is it going out for a walk with a group of friends? What is it that you want to do in life?
It could be working on a car. It could be going to a football match, I guess. I'm not particularly into football, but, if that's your thing. But it's, that sense of, joy.
But you've got a little expression about this, haven't you? If you're feeling nervous about something.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I've used this phrase for a very long time, and it really applies to me, and I hopefully will chime with you. And my phrase is lean into your fear. So whenever I get a really big fear reaction to something, I'm now old enough and wise enough to know myself and understand that actually is a signal from my subconscious that I should actually go and do that very thing that's making me so terrified. Now, I'm not talking about like going off and bungee jumping, but it's more like that sort of considered fear, the thing that stops you doing some really wonderful things. And I've had many, many occurrences but what I can tell you for sure is every time I've lent into my fear, it's always been worth it. It's always been, and those are the moments you really think back. You say, I'm so proud. I did that thing.
So kind of being brave enough to follow what lights you up.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
linked to that, another thing they found in this survey was very interesting, particularly interesting for me being a teacher, is that there's a lot of teacher dropout. And they found out that actually the teachers that chose the job because it was something that really lit them up, it was a vocation. They didn't just choose it because they thought, oh, fantastic long holidays, which we don't get anyway, or didn't get when I was teaching, that there was much higher sort of stress dropout. So when you're pursuing something you love, you actually are more resilient. You can actually resist the stresses.
I think do it for the right reasons, isn't
Do it for the right reasons, not because it's what's expected from you, not because...
Or it pays well, even.
Definitely not because it pays well. Linking on to that, the other thing they found out for us to thrive was we need to connect with people that we feel safe with. I mean, we're social animals, aren't we?
It's that sense of community, isn't it, which is so, so important. And I think increasingly maybe more challenging to keep up. And again, in the modern era, when we all have this sort of like surface connection with other people through social media again, which is fine, it has its place, but it doesn't take the place of face-to-face time and, sharing a meal or something with friends.
So definitely building those connections. Another interesting thing, but don't lose hope if you're not religious or don't have a spiritual sort of life to your side, was that people that did practice religion or practice spiritual practice actually were more resilient. But equally, we can get those connections from people. And you're a great cook, aren't you? So we build those connections through you.
Yeah, I just sort of alluded to that. I said about, having a meal together. Well, there's not many better ways of getting, connecting with people than having them around for great food and a glass of wine or something. But that's such I love, for me, cooking because it's a very nurturing activity, and I've always used that as a way of de-stressing. I used to work in the computer games industry many years ago, and very full-on job, very long hours. But one of the ways I loved to turn the stress down was cook when I got back, because it's a completely different activity. Really got me out of myself. But now I do it. It's a joyous thing for me, and I love to cook for people. Karen seems to like my cooking, which is always a good thing. And it's lovely. So, you don't need to necessarily spend lots of money on these things. It's about...
We love going to the market, don't we? Looking for the bargains.
Yes. In Oxford, there's somewhere called Gloucester Green. And the vegetables are not only way better than the best of the supermarket.
Way cheaper.
And they're half the price. They come in great big bags. So I think there's a scavenger element to, I suppose, who loves getting a bargain, but it's really good food. So you can eat really well and avoid processed foods, but that's another conversation. Yeah. And that's definitely something we love to do.
And just walking with friends as well, going out and walking. And one of my friends, she's set up a walking group, but the emphasis is not really on walking. It's actually on sort of nattering and walking. And so, she moved to a new place, and she's actually made friends through setting up this walking group, just initially with one person and other people joining, and they walk and natter, and then of course there's cake at the end. But
that must always be cake at the end.
Definitely cake. Great. So, is there anything else you want to say on that, or should we start?
I think we've rambled enough on that point. Shall we?
Okay, so to sum it up, to thrive, having good relationships, connecting with people through hobbies or family or friends, developing that sense of optimism, developing that sense of resilience, and having something to strive for that you're interested in. And all those things add up to the fact that it's a lifelong journey. Once you've achieved something, then you're on to the next thing for your challenge. So thriving is always about sort of developing yourself and about change in a way. So we don't actually master it, but we keep going. So we're sort of looking...
It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah, so we're wondering how you're doing. How are you getting on in these difficult times? Are you managing to thrive? Do you have any of the qualities that we've looked at today that were in the study, or do you have different ones that you would say are helping you thrive?
And again, in the comments, share any sort of tips or anything you might have, because it's all great to share these nuggets of knowledge and tricks and techniques.
Definitely. And how do you reach out and connect with people? I'm sometimes not very brave at asking people, would you like to go for a coffee? But I think that's one of my challenges, actually, to develop
We've
relationships.
got coffee now.
No, but with people that perhaps I
Oh, with other
don't know
people,
so
yeah.
well, but I would like to develop a deeper connection with. So I think it's about, a bit of bravery there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
Probably
this is where we can sort of wrap up. So don't forget to subscribe, give us a like and a comment if you've got time. We really appreciate it. So you take care,
have a really good week.
and we will see you soon.
Yeah.
Take care now.
Bye.